Welcome to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crime Stoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crimes by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that leads to an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crime Stoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General Crime Stoppers Trust Fund and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crime Stoppers work. Through anonymous tips provided by people just like you, Heartland Crime Stoppers received 3,078 tips resulting in 208 arrests, recovered $44,000 in property and drugs, while approving $72,000 in rewards last year. All it took was for someone to make a phone call or go to our website or use our mobile app and leave an anonymous tip. We never ask for your name or address or phone number. We don't have caller ID or recorded phone lines. We don't have tracking cookies on your computer IP address. Our proven tip reported system protects our tipster's identification. We don't need to know who you are to know who they, the criminals, are. Crime Stoppers started in 1976 as a single program in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is now an international organization that continues to solve crime and identify criminals. Just how successful has it been? Consider these nationwide Crime Stoppers stats. Arrests made from tips, over 719,000. Homicide cases cleared by tips, over 14,000. That's over 14,000 homicide cases cleared by somebody calling in an anonymous tip. Cases cleared by tips, over 1 million. Rewards paid, $108 million. That's $108 million paid in rewards nationwide. Property recovered, $1.1 billion. That's right, $1.1 billion in property recovered by someone calling in an anonymous tip. Drugs seized, $2.8 billion worth of drugs seized by anonymous tips. Makes a total recovery of $3.9 billion. All it took was for somebody to pick up the phone, go to the computer, or use their phone app to leave an anonymous tip. Please, if you have any information on any unsolved crime or have information on any ongoing criminal activity, please contact us and leave an anonymous tip. On today's show, we will take a look back at some of the places and people we visited and who visited us in the year in review. Well, Andy, we're now inside your mobile crime scene unit. This is a large RV, basically, that's been converted to basically everything that you can do in the lab, you can do here. Is that correct?
That's correct. The thought process behind this is now we don't have to get evidence from the scene, bring it back here to the Sheriff's Operations Center. I can have somebody else, while they're working the homicide or officer-involved shooting scenes, they can be inside this trailer actually processing for fingerprints and getting DNA and all of that without that time delay of having to get it back to the office. So it's got a super glue chamber on it, it's got a chemical chamber on it, and it's got a hood that we can process for fingerprints as well. And I can do photography here behind you. It has a setup for us to take photographs of any latent prints that we might develop.
And on your major crime scenes where you spend not only hours but sometimes days on a crime scene, this is really just a tool that's just invaluable.
That's correct. Not many people in the entire United States have a setup like this. This is one of the few that we found when we were doing a research for what we wanted that has this capability.
But it's an amazing thing, and it's just a beautiful unit with all the bells and whistles that you as a crime scene would need for these major scenes.
That's correct. We love having it. It's great. There's a good amount of space, storage space, plus all the processing capabilities. It's a great tool for us to use.
Now, Andy, we have here a lot of the tools that when you have outside scenes in woods or yards or somewhere, because a lot of times you're digging through stuff and getting really, really dirty. Explain some of the tools and how you can use them here.
So a lot of this equipment is our dig equipment. If we have a buried body or surface skeleton, we have to get rid of some of the surface area to be able to get to where the victim might be. So we have stakes that we can use to grid off the area where we're working. So we don't have like corners of a house to do measurements to, we have to create our own. And we also have to make sure that it's taped off just to make sure we're treating it like a crime scene. So that's what the stakes are for. We have shovels because when we're doing excavation, all of the dirt that we remove or the leaves, we have to sift through. So we have big sifters that will look for items of evidence, spent casings, projectiles, it might be pieces of clothing that the victim was wearing. We have to sift through all of that material to try to find evidence. Metal detector is something else that we could use on there to go over the ground to search for spent casings and projectiles and any metal items of evidence that might be buried with our victim.
We had talked a little bit about the funds that you collect through the clerk of the court. There's a lot of money that comes through there.
Yes, that's one of the other responsibilities is all of the money that flows through the court system, whether it's the payment of a traffic fine, a misdemeanor fine, felony, whether it's a filing fee or certifications for copies, any of that money flows through the clerk's office. We collect all that money. As a matter of fact, for the court system, we collected and distributed like over almost $65 million last year, including the money that funds Crime Stoppers, as you mentioned, that comes off of the cases. And so I'm responsible each month. We don't keep the money, we keep a little piece to operate, but to take all the money that comes in, and then by the 10th of the month, I have to distribute that money to all these various places, state agencies, trust funds, local municipalities, the cities with their, their fines, misdemeanors, to the law enforcement for their investigative costs, and pieces, for example, to Crime Stoppers. All that money, restitution that's paid through the court system, all flows through the clerk's office.
Well, speaking on behalf of one of those agencies that gets a piece of that pie, we thank you very much for
you are welcome.
for those efforts. Sticking around for the second half of our show is Director of County Probation, Lisa Ewing. Lisa, thanks for sticking around with us.
Thank you.
Now, we wanted to kind of talk about the second half of our show today on the electronic monitoring and explain exactly what that is.
The electronic monitoring program, to me, was very exciting. We actually started it. It came about from a work session between the County Public Safety Coordinating Council and the Board of County Commissioners back in, I believe, 2004, when the jail was very overcrowded. We are the only criminal justice agency that the Board of County Commissioners supervises through the county manager's office. And we were tasked with researching electronic monitoring, gathering information, and bringing a report back to the Public Safety Coordinating Council. We did in 2005. They voted to start a program, and the Board of County Commissioners kindly agreed to fund the program, and we've been in existence since 2005. It's very exciting to me because it provides a direct alternative to incarceration. These folks are in the county jail, and the circuit or county judges will decide if they should serve an existing sentence, maybe on electronic monitoring, or if they're a pretrial offender who can be released on electronic monitoring. Through some fashion, they're referred directly from the judge.
Well, how do these people get involved in the sexual trafficking? I mean, how do they recruit girls or get them involved in the trade?
Well, again, if you watch TV, it all looks like the kidnapping and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, that does happen, but predominantly it's someone who has befriended you. For teen girls, and understand boys are trafficked as well, but again, at the Porch Light, we actually work with teen girls ages 12 to 17. And a lot of these girls that come to us have been trafficked they meet these older boys or these older men. And these men come in and groom them by buying them nice things, taking them to get their hair done, taking them to get their nails done, and they take them to eat, and they buy them and just, woo them. And then the next thing you know, they want something in return. And then that child or that girl feels like it because he has said, I love you. And obviously it's a distorted definition of what love is.
Certainly.
But he says, I love you, and that's my first boyfriend, and I think I love him, and he's done all of these nice things, so I will do this for him. Well, and he says you only have to do this one time, and so then she does it the one time, and maybe he takes pictures, and then he threatens, and then he blackmails. I'm going to put these pictures of, you having sex with this person on social media, or I'm going to share it with your family, or I'm going to tell your pastor. And so now they feel like they're trapped and they don't have a way to get out.
And like talk about the adoptions, it's so nice to have an area where you can interact with the dog and see how the dog's personality and your personality or your family's personality, how the dog acts, because you can't tell that from just looking at one inside one of the kennels.
Yes, absolutely. They act sometimes a lot different in a kennel than when you bring them out, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it's like, oh, this isn't the right dog, but let me go find a different one. We have lots of dogs to choose from, lots of sizes, shapes, colors, and breeds and genders. So I mean, we have something if you're looking for a new pet.
Now, I know we talked earlier, but how long does a dog stay on the adoption aisle, as you call it?
Once it's spayed and neutered, it is up there until we find it a home. So sometimes, obviously, we don't like to keep them up there for an extended period of time, but sometimes it ends up being, months. And at that point, we'd reduce the price, sometimes even to free to get them homes. And if we can't, or if a problem develops while they're here, then we try to get our rescues to go ahead and take them, and maybe they would be able to find them a foster home or a forever home.
So you really do all that you can to find these dogs a home, and cats as well.
Yes, and once we take the time and the effort and put that money into it, we don't want them to go anywhere besides a forever home. So that's our goal, is once they come to adoption and they're spayed and neutered, we find them a home.
And that's so important that you just mentioned all the animals that come through you. Through the clinic that you have here on site, they are spayed and neutered, so
yes,
they are ready to go have their shots and they are ready to go home.
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. These efforts increase tips, which in turn solve more crimes and identify criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent cases.
The Polk County Sheriff's Office Traffic Unit is investigating a fatal hit-and-run crash that occurred during the early morning hours of Sunday, November 26th, and is seeking the public's help. Around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, November 26th, 30-year-old Barry Lee Powell Jr. of North Pleasant Avenue in Bartow was walking westbound along the shoulder of Highway 60 just east of Cedar Trail Landfill in Bartow when he was struck by an unknown vehicle also traveling westbound. The Polk County Sheriff's Office Traffic Unit is investigating a fatal hit-and-run crash that occurred during the early morning hours of Saturday, October 28th, and they need your help to identify and locate the suspect. Just after midnight, Friday night, Saturday morning, October 28, 2017, 56-year-old Leonard Wimbley Jr. of Haines City was riding his three-wheeled bicycle westbound along Masterpiece Road just east of Longhorn Drive in Lake Wales when he was fatally struck by a truck also traveling westbound. The suspect vehicle is a 1998 to 2009 Dodge 2500 or 3500 pickup truck. The mirror left behind is a tow mirror. The suspect truck appeared to have continued heading west on Masterpiece Road towards Scenic Highway. Lake Hamilton Police Department is working on a retail shoplifting case that occurred on November 11, 2017 at the Dollar General located at 101 Hatchinahaw Road in Lake Hamilton. The Polk County Sheriff's Office is investigating an armed robbery of a 7-Eleven store in the northeast part of the county on Sunday, November 5, 2017 at 7:48 a.m. According to deputies, a man entered the convenience store at 43332 U.S. Highway 27 in Davenport and made it seem as though he was making a purchase. When the clerk opened the register, the suspect pulled out a handgun and demanded money. The clerk handed over the currency to the suspect, who exited the store and was seen getting into a black vehicle. They need your help in identifying the man with the gun, as well as the other two men who may have played roles in the robbery. The Lakeland Police Department wants to know, do you know this person? They tried to cash a check stolen in a burglary to a motor vehicle. The Lake Hamilton Police Department is working on a retail shoplifting case that occurred on September 14, 2017 at the Dollar General located at 101 Hatchinahaw Road in Lake Hamilton. David Ellis Jr. is wanted on charges of leaving the scene of a traffic crash with serious bodily injury, willfully driving with a suspended driver's license, and hauling tires without a permit. Polk County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Homicide Unit needs your help in finding out who murdered John Blakely in 1986. He was last seen alive on November 15, 1986 at approximately 11 p.m. in the area of 4th Street in Fort Meade. On November 16, 1986, John Blakely was reported missing, and his 1986 Buick. On November 30, 1986, the victim's partially skeletized remains were found underneath the bridge at Charlie Creek, approximately 1 mile east of Singletary Road on County Line Road in Fort Meade.
If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to the year in review of Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. In the first half, we looked at the ladies that helped us out with Crime Stoppers this year. The second half, we're going to look at some of the men and their contributions to the Crime Stoppers show. At that point, in many cases, have someone's life in your hands, if you will, and you've got to make sure that they get a fair trial, they follow the rules of law, and that the playing ground is, if you will, is level, so they do get a fair and impartial trial.
And that's really one of the roles. A judge is sitting up there as a neutral party. I mean, the judge is, I tell people that I don't really care what the verdict is. I tell the lawyers I don't care what the outcome is, as long as it's just. It's up to the lawyers to present their cases. It's up to the judge to preside, to make sure that the rules of evidence are complied with, and that a fair trial is provided to anybody accused of a crime. Because you have to remember, these people, while they're sitting as defendants, they are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. So it's up to a judge to make sure that it's a fair forum in which the evidence is presented, that the evidence is presented properly, and that constitutional rights are protected, which is one of the most fundamental aspects of what a judge does.
Now, I think you said it during your time when you were in that homicide division, there were over 70 cases of which you had a personal contact with or had influence on, about 40 of those.
Well, I was actually, during the 4 years I was in the homicide division, we cleared a little over 70 cases, either by trial, by plea agreements, by the state eventually null-processing a case because there wasn't sufficient evidence to proceed, any number of different reasons. And I think we tried somewhere around 40 cases, but we actually cleared or disposed of over 70.
Now, the Department of Detention is a very important part of the Sheriff's Office, which is a huge organization. And there's a lot of different divisions and things that go on in that department. Tell us about the Department of Detention.
Well, it's about 550 members, about 380 what we call sworn or certified, and then you have your civilian components, about 170. We have two divisions, so we have a security division and a support division. And the easy way to think about that is the security division is everything dealing with the jails. We have two of those. We have the Central County Jail in Bartow, and we have the South County Jail in Frostproof. And then we have the support division that's everything that's not the jail. So the bookend, the courthouse, court process, food service, transportation, and inmate programs.
Chief Allen kind of gave a real quick overview on some of the programs, and there's golly, as we talked about all the changes, the things that are being offered for those that want to take part of it, while they're incarcerated, is really really exciting.
Right. We're actually growing that program. It's a learn in progress, and our biggest challenge is time. Unlike our prison counterparts, our jail is limited in the amount of time a person stays with us. So our programs are kind of geared toward for the short-term gain, I guess.
Now, I know that there's things they can work towards their GED and other education. They can even through one of the partnerships you have with the college. Tell us about those programs. Those are just really interesting.
Okay. We have actually like a 3-level GED program. We have like a ESOL preparatory type GED program through Lake Wales Literacy Council. We partner with them. Joel Campbell is one of the instructors. We have a pre-GED, which would be the next step up, or math, science, and English. And then we just recently started in January this year with East Area Adult School for regular school board GED training and testing. We will be having a classroom at Central County Jail for female inmates, and South County Jail will be our male classroom. We will have 2 certified test sites, both one in Central County Jail and one in South County Jail. Hopefully, as they progress up through those levels, we'll be able to let them leave their jail with their at least high school equivalency.
So we take it very personally when people use fire as an instrument of violence, and that's been going on for hundreds of years, and I think it'll continue to go on for hundreds of years. That fire is going to be used as an instrument of violence and terror, and we're pretty proud to say that we're experts in investigating that type of crime.
Yeah. How many cases do you typically investigate in a year or assist with?
Okay, so agency-wide, our department, we engage in about 4,000 investigations statewide.
Statewide, and that's quite a number.
Ultimately, we put somewhere between 600 and 800 people a year in jail for either arson or arson-related crimes like insurance fraud. We partner with other agencies, making sure homicides are solved and people are held accountable for that kind of thing. In this particular area, the Polk County Field Office covers Polk, Highlands, Hardee, and DeSoto counties, and we've got a lieutenant and 6 detectives that work just that footprint, and that's all they do in those 4 counties. Now, obviously, they get to other counties because arson is a crime that can cross jurisdictions.
Certainly.
But we're pretty lucky. We've got a very talented group of people in our stable here locally. We have 2 canines in the area locally, including an arson, an accelerant detection canine. There's 6 of those in the state. There's 1 in each of the regions we cover. We also have an explosives canine in the region. It's the only one that we have, our department has, statewide. So we're pretty proud of the talent that we've got here locally. We've hired people who are used to be crime scene supervisors, people who used to be FWC officers, homicide detectives for other sheriff's offices. Some come from smaller police departments. So kind of getting that good mix of experience has been great for us locally. Many of the people we hire are local people. They come to us with a vast amount of local knowledge and contacts, and that's invaluable in the field of law enforcement. It's just being able to communicate with our partners.
Exactly, it really is. Now, I know that in Lake Wales, you have been ramping up some of your efforts and addressing some of the traffic issues in Lake Wales. Tell us more about that.
Well, first, with it being school starting back up, schools just started back up, we're wanting to remind everybody that they need to really pay attention. They need to be aware of the school zones. They need to be on the lookout for children that are walking to and from school. We're going to be out helping to reinforce that with preventative patrols and proactive enforcement. But we're overall going to focus more on traffic in our area. We've had an uptick in traffic crashes. Last year, in 2016, we had over 600 traffic crashes just in our city limits, and 5 of those resulted in fatalities. Numerous crashes there resulted in serious bodily injury, and when we go back and analyze and review our statistics, the crashes, what's happening, we're not necessarily seeing anything in particular as a contributing cause. In other words, speed, driving under the influence, those types of factors. What we really are seeing is that people just aren't paying attention. They're in a hurry. They're not wanting to be courteous. They're distracted, whether it be by the telephone, by texting, by just conversation. They've got so many things going on in this electronic age. They're just not really, they don't really have their head in the game when they're driving. And 65, 60 miles per hour going down the road, and you take your eyes off the road and your head's not in it, it can result in tragedy really quickly. So we're going to be focusing on traffic enforcement, traffic education, and ultimately traffic safety. We're not out there just to write tickets. We're not out there trying to ruin people's days. We're really trying to save lives, and we just want people to know that they need to slow down, they need to pay attention to what they're doing, and they need to have their head in the game when they're driving a vehicle.
Now, September was a real busy month for you guys, wasn't it?
It really was. It really
had a couple
was.
of hurricanes, not only here in Florida, but in Texas, and that really made an impact in your operations, didn't it?
It did, but I'm very proud of the FWC and the state of Florida for the response we had for both. Started out with Hurricane Harvey. We sent 145 officers to Houston and Beaumont, Texas.
145 of your personnel went
from the state of Florida. Yep, 145. We took 65 vessels, and they went for strictly search and rescue missions to deal with the flooding issues that they've had, swiftwater rescue, and for humanitarian aid as well. 30 officers from this region went along with that group, part of our special operations group, went to help, and they did a lot of great work. They were pulling a lot of people out of houses, helping a lot of families in need. And I know that the folks in Texas really appreciated what the state of Florida brought to the table as far as aid in their realm. And right after that, those guys had only been back a couple of days, and we experienced Hurricane Irma. And as we prepared here on the west coast of Florida, was really a response mode that was going to be down towards the Keys and Miami. As we all know, that turned in, as the week went on, turned into a preparation mode. So we kind of had to change face on that a little bit.
Irma didn't read the forecast,
did she? That's correct. So. And I can tell you, as being on a lot of hurricane responses and giving aid to a lot of people, I much prefer that side of it than the preparation side, for the family. It's a lot more difficult, a lot more stressful to have to prepare your family and your homes for the hurricane impacting your home. But it's something that we hadn't experienced here in a long time. But definitely got us woken up to that whole thing. But very proud of the officers. We responded to that as well. We sent over 150 officers to the Keys. I spent a week down in Naples and Marco Island helping our guys down there. And our first part of that response too is help our affected FWC personnel. We have over 20 officers in the Keys that are totally displaced from their homes, and a lot of the sheriff's office deputies down there. So our first part of the response obviously is search and rescue. But we want to make sure that our guys down there are able to take care of their homes. So we go down there and provide that law enforcement response where they can't, to kind of give them a break. And same thing down in Naples and Marco Island. Trying to send our officers from up here down there to assist the guys and the girls that are working down there to give them a break to take care of their home.
That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind that Heartland Crime Stoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crimes through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life here in Polk County. For more information, you can check us out on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. Until next time, keep in mind, it's a crime, and you can help make sure that they don't get away with it.